Guys, welcome to another video tutorial. So if you are new to my channel, my name is Gloria Leonard. I post video on everything UiUx every week to help beginners in UiUx design scale up their skill set and also monetize their UiUx design skill. So if you're new, don't forget to hit the bell icon to subscribe so that I can get notified whenever I upload new video. So for today's video, we'll be talking about design thinking. So design thinking is a non-linear iterative process that team use to understand user. So as a UI UX designer, it's very important you know the different phases of design thinking so that you'll be able to come up with ideas whenever you want to design for a particular problem. So if you have not watched the part 1 to 3 of this UI UX design series for beginners, so I'm going to be leaving the link to all the videos in the description box. So don't forget to watch so that you can be in line with what we learned in the past videos. So design thinking is a non-linear, so meaning it doesn't end. So we have 5 phases of design thinking, which is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So design thinking is basically used to refine problem and create innovative solution to prototype and test. So it is used to tackle unknown problem. So basically, whenever you want to tackle any problem before you start designing, not only before you start designing, even after the product has already been launched, the design thinking phases comes in very handy. So the first phase of design thinking is the empathize phase. So as you can see here in this diagram, the design thinking, it doesn't end, it moves in circles. So what I mean by it moves in circles is that from the empathize phase, you can go to the define phase to ideate, prototype, and test. So this 5 phase does not end whether your product is being launched. You can launch a product today, test it on users. So you need to empathize with the users. What I mean by empathize is feeling the shoes of the user, because most times for you to actually understand what your users are going through, you need to imagine yourself in their shoes. So as a UI UX designer, you need to always empathize with the users they are designing for. So when you empathize with them, you'll be able to see things from their point of view to understand their pain point. So for example, you launch a product today, you need to empathize with the user and get feedback from them and understand how they see the product you have just launched, whether they find the product easier to use. So even when they are giving you feedback, you need to have a listening spirit as a UI UX designer to pay attention to all the feedback that they are giving to you. You come back, you define the problem. So majority of the time when you are being given all this feedback, you need to jot them down. Then you come up with ideas on how you are going to solve those problems. Then you prototype again. So we'll be going in details into prototype as we move on in this course. So you prototype, then you test, meaning test it on real users. Then when you test it again, you learn from users, you empathize with users again, define. So this process doesn't end. So let's go into details for each of them. So the empathize means you research users' need, explore the problem that you are trying to solve with the product. User UI UX designers conduct interviews and review existing knowledge of issues, knowing what needed to be solved. Just like what I said earlier, this design thinking phases is not only before you start designing, you can also make use of it even after the product is being launched. So you need to empathize, you need to understand the problem that you are trying to solve. So remember the different research method we covered in our last video. We have the interviews, so we have the survey. So the interview, you use it to get feedback from the users, and when you are getting feedback, try to understand from their own point of view. Then we have the define phase. You state users need and problem, so you learn more about the user and what they are currently doing to solve the problem. So most times before the product is being launched, or before you design a digital product to solve a particular problem, there's a way in which the user has been managing the problem for a long time. So you need to understand how the user has been managing the problem even before you start designing. So generally, you need to go in details to understand where the user is coming from, how the problem has been in their life, how they have been managing the problem. So you need to understand the root cause of each problem you are designing for, so that you can get more clarity on how your digital product is going to solve their need. And remember, like what I said earlier, whenever you are interviewing users, make sure you jot down their feedback. So most times, because it's an interview section, the user is going to be talking. Most times jotting cannot be faster for you. You can always use your phone recorder to record what the user is saying. Then later you can come back and jot everything down. So majority of the time, even when you pen down, when you document things that happen in the interview, when you're interviewing users about the data app, so majority of the time you need to document your findings so that you can always give feedback to stakeholders or project owners. So there are some companies you might be working for. The stakeholders are people that come together to fund a particular digital product. What I mean by funding, some people might come together to bring money together to fund a particular digital product to solve a particular problem. So most times when you are the one in charge of the user research as the UI/UX designer, you need to also give them feedback of what users are saying about the existing problem they want to design for, or if the product has launched already, what users are saying about the product launch, so that then they can also be in sync. So as a UI/UX designer, you don't only design, you also need to learn how to communicate your thought process, because you don't work alone as a UI/UX designer. As we move on in this particular video, we'll be exploring different career paths in UI/UX design. So you need to learn how to communicate your findings to stakeholders or to the project owner. There are some companies that you work directly with the main owner of the project. There are some digital projects that are owned by stakeholders. I mean, different people coming together to fund a particular project, or just one person. So even when you are in the defined phase, you also need to come up with user journey map and personas. We'll be talking more in details about user journey maps as we move on in this course. So the next phase in the design thinking is ideate, where you basically come up with different ideas. So most of the times, just like what I said, as a designer, you don't work alone. So most times there are some company that might hire like 50 UI/UX designers or 50 designers to work on a particular project, especially for big tech startup. So most of the times, you and your team needs to come up with different ideas on how to solve that particular problem. So majority of the time, you might make use of sticky notes and marker to, for example, you have a particular idea. The idea is basically design ideas, or it can be design ideas, it can be flow, or whatever that is going to help the user on the app based on the problems you have gotten and the interviews you have gotten from the other phases of design thinking. So you write a particular idea on a sticky note with a marker, then you place it on a whiteboard. So different people come up with different ideas. So it's basically like a brainstorming section where people come up with different idea on how the product is going to look, how would the functionality of the application be like, how would the flow be like, how would the user journey be. The journey is how would the user journey basically mean, how would the user move from point A to point B? In what scenario are they going to make use of this particular feature on the app? You might need to also understand the user persona. So persona is basically like a detailed diagram of who the user is. As we move on, we'll be covering how to come up with a user persona. So this ideate phase is basically you come up with different ideas. So you don't need to hold on any ideas. So you need to challenge assumption and create as many ideas as possible. Then we'll have the prototype, where you come up with a prototype, you design and you come up with a prototype of your work. So prototype of your work is basically when you design, you link each pages together. So and most times it's always used when you design and you prototype your work. We'll be covering prototype in as we move on in this course, how to prototype our work with Figma. Figma is the application we're going to be using. You can test your designs, you can test your work, you can use your design prototype to test it on real users to get feedback even before the application is going to be developed. So far, if you have any question, don't forget to comment below. I'm always happy to reply your comments. So we're looking at jobs in the field of user experience design. So as a UI UX designer, you always need to have the mindset of empathy, the ability to understand someone else's feeling or thought in any situation. So empathy is not only for the user you are designing for, it's also for the people you'll be working with. You need to empathize with them to ease a smooth collaboration, because as a UI UX designer, you don't work alone. Most times you might find yourself in a team that has different people, just like graphic designers, product manager, front end developers, back end developers. So most of the time, to avoid friction, you need to understand things from somebody else point of view, and for you to actually understand, you need to learn how to empathize with also the colleague you'll be working with. So different type of UX designers will have interaction designers, visual designers, and motion designers. So interaction designers focus on designing experience of a product and how it functions. So basically the designs that is going to be come up with, or the digital product, they basically come up with interaction. If somebody tap on a particular button, what will happen? What's the interaction that is going to take place? So that's the work of interaction designer. So visual designer is basically a designer that come up with the visual aspect of a data product. So in UI UX design, we have UI, which is user experience design, rather user interface design, and we have UX, user experience um design. So UI basically has to do with those physical things you see with your two eyes whenever you're using any data product. It can be an app, whatever you see with your physical eyes is the UI, which is the user interface. So UI based, for example, when you look at your WhatsApp, you see text, you see buttons, you see shapes, you see icons, you see colors. Those things you're basically seeing with your two eyes are the UI. Then remember, the UX design, user experience design, basically the experience you get when using this platform. So the work of a visual designer is basically to come up with those visual aspects of a digital product. And we have a motion designer. They think about what it feels like for a user to move from move through the product. So as we move on, you understand details of a motion designer. So graphic designers are basically people that come up with graphics, e-flyer, logo, whatever that is needed for the data product. So this is the major difference between a graphic designer and a UX designer. So a graphic designer focus on the physical appearance of a product. The UX designer focus on how user interact with a product. So people that a UI UX designer will work with. So a UI UX designer will work with a UX researcher. Your work as a UI UX designer, depending on the company you find yourself, there are some company that has a very huge budget and they can employ so many people. So a company that has a big tech company rather. So most times the person that does the UI is different from the person that does the user research. The person that does the graphic is different from the person that does the UI. But when you are working for a company, a small company, maybe a startup, the majority of the time you be the one to wear different hats. You be the UI designer, you be the UX researcher, you be the graphic designer. So your role as a UI UX designer depends on the company you find yourself. So UX researchers, they basically conduct research before the product is being developed. Basically what we have been talking about on how to research. So there are some people that are hired to go in to do detailed research about a particular product even before the product is being designed. So majority of these researchers, they travel to different countries. For example, if you want to design an app for Indians, you cannot be in Nigeria and assume what living in India is like. So most times you as researcher, they will go as far as traveling to India to understand their culture, their behavioral pattern, understand the challenges they face, to actually know how the app they want to design will be used for them. So you can see, doing UI research, the company even have to has to fund their traveling fee and all those things. So you can see the work that is involved in UI research, in UX research rather. So US writers, they actually come up with copy. So what I mean by copy is, when you go to any digital product, you see written content. So despite the fact your app has a good user experience, you need to come up with written content like text. The way you come up with your text determine whether people is going to understand how to use your product. Even if it's for your website, the written content of those websites is very, very important because it's needed. Even the written content for your buttons, so it's very, very important. So there are some people that their work is just to do that, and they are called the UX writers. So we have the production designers. So production designers, they bridge the gap between the interaction designers and the engineers. So different company have different names they give to different role. So this can also mean project managers, people that manage the project. They give feedback to the project owner. There are some company you might be working with, you will not be working directly with the project owner or stakeholders. You work directly with the project manager, because the project manager will be giving feedback to the stakeholders or project owner about how the project is going on and what phase they are. So we'll have UX engineers. So UX engineers are basically people that knows how to design and also code their work. So those are the people that they are called UX engineer. So yeah, so responsibility of an entry level UX designer. So as a beginner in UI UX design, these are the responsibilities you should have. You should know how to come up with research. You should know how to come up with wireframe. You should know how to prototype, create information architecture, communicate effectively. All of this will be going into details as we move on in this course. Research, we have already talked about research. Wireframing is basically coming up with rough sketch. So most time before you start designing, you need to like sketch out your design ideas on how the platform is going to look like. This is just like a skeletal drawing. This is an example of a wireframe. So a wireframe, you can do it with a pen or pencil and a drawing book or a sheet of paper, just to structure how you want to design your application. So wireframe can be done with pen and paper. It can also be done digitally like this. So this is just like an outline or a sketch of a product or a screen. So just to sketch your idea. For example, you want to design a particular e-commerce page for a website. You want to sketch out where they will see different listings of different products that the user will be buying for. So you sketch out your ideas. So as we move on, we understand the benefits of wireframing. So we've already talked about prototype. So information architecture is basically the framework of your website, or how it's organized and categorized and structure information. So whether you like it or not, the way you structure your information in your digital product matters a lot. So you need to structure information. What I mean by information, your written content, your videos, your images, even different contents or different links to different pages. Because for example, an e-commerce website has thousands of pages. So if the pages are not well structured, users are going to be confused on how to navigate around that e-commerce site. So that's one of the benefits of information architecture. Is like an somebody that is about to build a house, you draw a house plan. So information architecture is basically the way you structure information on data products. So as we move on, we'll see how to structure information in a data product. So we have a generalist. A generalist is a UX designer with broad numbers of responsibility. Generalist is basically a UI UX designer that knows coding, prototyping, visual design, UX design, writing. So as we move on in this course, you begin to know your strength. So me, my own strength is on UI UX design. I know how to come up with nice UI design very well. So we'll have a specialist and drives deep into one particular UX design role. For example, somebody that decides to the area of specialty is just UI design. So you can decide to specialize in just one part, and some people that specialize in user research. So we have the T-shaped designer specialized in one kind of UX design and has a breadth of knowledge in other areas. So you can see the specialization of a T-shaped designer and has a depth knowledge in visual design. So that's all for this particular tutorial, guys. So if you have any question, so don't forget to comment. You can reach out to me through my email or any of my social. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get notified whenever I upload new video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching.